They say his empire fell because of enemies, but nobody saw the day he broke the promise he made to protect the only girl who actually trusted him, an orphan with panic attacks, silence, and trauma that bled like an open wound. The truth is, he saved her, but the fear she'd been carrying since childhood, the frozen terror she hid behind those empty eyes, that's exactly what revealed the secret that destroyed them both. It all started on a night of rain, abandonment, and desperation, with a stray dog howling low in the gutter, a sick baby shaking in the arms of someone who had nothing, and that broken promise echoing in his mind like a knife. And when the judge's daughter found out what he did to save that kid, the world forgot. The secret that should never have been touched surfaced, and their destruction became inevitable. Look, if you're into stories where protection turns into a death sentence, where the trauma you bury comes back to collect blood, hit that subscribe button right now. Because around here, even when someone saves a life, they always lose another one. And in this case, he saved her, but that childhood fear revealed the secret that destroyed everything. Or just drop a like real quick, because what's coming next involves guilt, old wounds, broken promises, and the kind of truth nobody's ready to face. This ain't some fairy tale where the bad guy gets redeemed and rides off into the sunset. Nah. This is about what happens when the monster tries to save the angel, and realizes too late that she's been carrying the one thing that could bury him alive. So buckle up, because this story is gonna hurt. At his peak, he controlled streets, politicians, gangs, and even colonels who once served with him in the military. Dude was seen as absolute force, an ex-soldier turned legend, raised by childhood screams, molded by abandonment, guided by trauma and violence he learned way too early. He became dominant, untouchable, feared. The kind of man who could walk into a room and everyone would go silent. Not because they respected him, nah, respect was earned a long time ago, but because they knew what happened to people who crossed him. His empire stretched from the docks of Long Beach all the way up to the hills of San Francisco. He had judges in his pocket, cops on his payroll, politicians who owed him favors they could never repay. He was the ghost that ran California from the shadows. The name that parents whispered to scare their kids straight. The nightmare that even other criminals had nightmares about. But here's the thing nobody understood. Behind all that brutality, behind the cold eyes and the bloody hands, there was still the same wound that never healed. He tried to protect innocence, to fix the broken child still crying inside him. See, when he was 7 years old, he watched his baby sister die in his arms because nobody came to help. No ambulance. No neighbor. No God. Just him, a terrified kid, holding her while she stopped breathing. That night carved something dark and permanent into his soul. It taught him that the world doesn't save the helpless, it devours them. So he became the one who decided who lived and who died. He became the protector he wished existed when he needed one. But protection, man, protection always comes with a price. And then she appeared. The judge's daughter. Purity in human form. Law, morality, justice, everything he wasn't. The only person capable of seeing something nobody else could. Not the monster he became, but the boy who got crushed by his past. Her name was Rebecca. Rebecca Hartwell. 26 years old, fresh out of law school, working as a legal clerk in her father's courtroom. Blonde hair always tied back, glasses she didn't really need but wore anyway, cardigans that screamed, "I believe in the system." She was the kind of person who still thought the law could save people. Who still believed justice wasn't just a word rich people bought. Who looked at criminals and saw broken humans instead of monsters. Naive? Maybe. Dangerous? Absolutely. Because she looked at him the same way. The courthouse was the only place where his power meant nothing. There, he was just a man being judged by the eyes of someone who saw his truth. Someone who could strip away the armor, the reputation, the fear, and see the wounded kid underneath. That woman, raised by the law, was the absolute taboo. The line he swore he'd never cross. The one thing his empire couldn't touch. And also his inevitable damnation. Because she saw exactly what could destroy him. The fact that everything he built was born from a pain he tried to erase by saving a child years ago. Their first meeting wasn't romantic. It was hostile. He sat in that courtroom for a hearing on some bogus racketeering charge his lawyers would crush in 5 minutes. He didn't even look at the judge. Didn't look at the prosecutors. He looked at her. Rebecca stood near the clerk's desk, holding a stack of files, and when their eyes met, something shifted. She didn't flinch. Didn't look away. Didn't do that nervous smile people do when they're scared but trying to hide it. She just stared back. And in that stare, he saw something he hadn't seen in years. Someone who wasn't afraid of him. Or maybe she was terrified, but her fear looked different. Looked familiar. After the hearing, he had his guys dig up everything on her. Standard procedure. Know your enemies, know their families, know their weaknesses. But what they found made his blood run cold. Rebecca Hartwell wasn't just the judge's daughter. She was a survivor. At 6 years old, she'd been kidnapped. Taken from her front yard while playing with sidewalk chalk. Held for 3 days in a basement by some psycho who got off on terrifying kids. She was recovered alive, physically unharmed, but the trauma carved itself so deep into her brain that even now, 20 years later, she couldn't sleep without a light on. Couldn't be in enclosed spaces without hyperventilating. Couldn't hear certain sounds without her body shutting down completely. Panic disorder, the file said. PTSD. Childhood trauma that never really heals, just learns to hide better. And here's where it gets twisted. The man who kidnapped her? He was never officially caught. The cops found her abandoned in an alley 3 days later, wrapped in a blanket, unharmed. No note. No explanation. Just released. The case went cold. Her father, Judge Hartwell, spent years trying to find the guy. Poured money into private investigators, pushed the DA's office, made it his personal mission. But the kidnapper vanished like smoke. Until now. Because the man sitting across from Rebecca in that courtroom, the one with the cold eyes and the bloody empire, he knew something about that case. Something nobody else knew. He knew because 15 years ago, when he was still building his crew, still hungry and reckless, he'd been hired to find someone. A kid. A boy with a disability who'd gone missing from a group home. Deaf kid, 8 years old, lost in a city that didn't give a damn. He found the kid. But he also found something else. A network. A sick, underground pipeline of people who traded in fear, in innocence, in broken children. And when he tried to pull that kid out, when he tried to save one life, he made a choice that broke his first promise. A choice that would echo through the years. A choice that connected to Rebecca in ways he didn't yet understand. But she did. Because the fear she carried since childhood, that frozen terror behind her eyes, it was the key to the secret that would destroy them both. And as he sat in that courtroom watching her pretend she wasn't shaking, he realized the worst possible truth. The girl he once saved, and the girl standing in front of him now, were connected by the same nightmare. And neither of them knew it yet. The first touch between them wasn't affection, it was desperation. 3 weeks after that courthouse stare down, he found her in a parking garage at 11 p.m. Not by coincidence. He'd been watching, following, trying to figure out why this girl, this symbol of everything he could never be, haunted him like a ghost he couldn't shake. She was having a panic attack. Full-blown, can't breathe, body-shaking, world-ending panic attack. Crouched between two cars, hyperventilating into her hands, eyes wide and vacant like she'd left her body entirely. He'd seen that look before. On the deaf kid he tried to save 15 years ago. On his baby sister the night she died in his arms. On himself, every time he looked in the mirror and saw the monster staring back. Most people would have called 911, gotten help, done the right thing. But he wasn't most people. He knelt down in front of her, slow and deliberate, hands visible so she'd know he wasn't a threat. "Hey," he said, voice low and calm. "Rebecca. Look at me." She couldn't. Her eyes were locked on something invisible, something only she could see. The ghost of that basement from 20 years ago, the memory that lived in her nervous system like a parasite. "You're not there anymore," he told her. "You're here. With me. In a parking garage that smells like gasoline and stale coffee. You're safe." His voice cut through the fog. Not because it was kind, it wasn't, but because it was certain. Unshakable. The voice of someone who understood what it meant to drown in your own head. Her breathing slowed. Her eyes focused. And when she finally looked at him, really looked at him, she saw the same pain she carried. Different trauma. Same wound. "Who are you?" she whispered, even though she knew exactly who he was. "Someone who gets it," he said. And that's how it started. Not with romance. Not with flowers or dinner or any of that fairy tale garbage. But with shared wreckage. Two people whose childhoods got stolen recognizing each other in the dark. Over the next few months they fell into something that couldn't be defined. It wasn't dating, she was the judge's daughter, he was the devil her father spent his career trying to bury. It wasn't therapy, though God knows they both needed it. It was survival. She'd call him at 2 a.m. when the nightmares hit. He'd talk her down from the ledge, his voice steady and low, reminding her she wasn't 6 years old anymore. He'd show up outside her apartment after a bad day, not saying a word, just sitting in his car across the street until he knew she was okay. She never asked him to. He never explained why. But they both knew. He was trying to protect her the way nobody protected his sister. She was trying to save him the way nobody saved that terrified kid in the basement. It was codependency disguised as connection. Trauma bonding dressed up as something deeper. And it worked. Until it didn't. Because while he was making promises to keep her safe, promises whispered in dark parking garages and empty diners at 3 a.m., she was hiding something. Something she found 3 months into whatever they were. A flash drive. Small, black, ordinary-looking thing tucked inside an evidence box her father kept locked in his home office. She found it by accident while looking for old case files for a research project. The label on the drive was handwritten, faded, Hartwell kidnapping, alternate lead, do not open. Her father's handwriting. Her father's warning. She should have listened. But trauma makes you reckless. Makes you poke at wounds that never healed just to make sure they still hurt. So she opened it. And what she found? God, what she found. A voice recording. 15 years old, judging by the date stamp. Poor audio quality, staticky, like it was recorded on an old device. 2 men talking. One voice she didn't recognize, young, desperate, angry. The other. She knew that voice. She'd heard it at 2 a.m. calming her panic attacks. Heard it in parking garages promising she was safe. It was him. 15 years younger, rougher around the edges, but unmistakably him. And in that recording he was negotiating. I found your kid, his younger self said. The deaf boy from the group home. He's alive. But I need something from you first. The other voice, raspy, cold, and human, laughed. You think you can bargain with me? I know what you do, he said. I know about the others. The kids you take. The ones who disappear. Silence. Then, what do you want? Let one of them go, he said. The girl. The one you took 3 days ago from the suburbs. The judge's daughter. Let her go and I'll walk away. I won't tell the cops about this location. I won't burn your whole operation down. Just let her go. Her blood turned to ice. The other voice considered this. Why do you care about some rich man's kid? Because I'm tired of watching kids die, he said, and his voice cracked. Actually cracked like the weight of it was crushing him. Another silence. Then, fine. I'll drop her somewhere safe. But you owe me, soldier. And one day I'm gonna collect. Deal. The recording cut off. Rebecca sat in her father's office, staring at that flash drive like it was a live grenade. He saved her. Not the cops. Not some heroic detective or FBI agent. Him. The man she'd spent months falling into really, was the reason she survived that basement. But here's the twist that made her stomach turn. He made a deal with the devil to do it. He let that monster go. Let him walk free. Let him keep operating, keep taking kids, keep spreading his rot through the city. All to save her. One life for dozens. And the deaf boy he was originally hired to find? The recording didn't say. But 3 weeks after that negotiation, a body was found in the LA River. 8 years old. The cause of death, blunt force trauma. The case went cold. Just like hers. She sat there in that office for hours, holding that flash drive, finally understanding, why her kidnapper let her go. Why the case never got solved. Why her father kept this evidence locked away. Because if this got out, if anyone knew a decorated soldier turned criminal made a deal with a child predator, it would destroy everything. The case, her father's career, the entire fragile system of justice her family built their lives on. And him? He'd be finished. Not just legally, morally, because he saved her by condemning others. He broke his first promise, to save every kid he could, to keep a second promise, protecting her. And now she held the proof. The object that connected her childhood trauma to his past. The secret that explained why he looked at her like she was both salvation and damnation. She could destroy him with this. End his empire. Vindicate her father's crusade. Expose the truth. Or she could bury it. Protect the man who protected her. Become complicit in the same darkness that saved her life. For weeks, she carried that flash drive in her pocket. Felt its weight every second. And every time he called her at 2 a.m., every time he showed up to make sure she was okay, every time he promised he'd never let anything hurt her, she felt that drive burning through her clothes like a brand. Because the love they'd built, if you could even call it love, wasn't romance. It was a wound. Shared guilt. Mutual destruction dressed up as protection. He saved her as a child. But the fear she still carried, that frozen panic that lived in her bones, existed because of the choice he made. The kids who came after her. The ones he didn't save. The deaf boy in the river. Their ghosts lived inside her trauma. And now she had to decide. Was she the girl he saved? Or was she the judge's daughter who'd bring him to justice? Could she be both? The answer, she realized with sickening clarity, was no. One of them had to fall. And the flash drive in her pocket? That was the gun. She just had to decide whether to pull the trigger. Alright, real talk. Drop a comment right now and tell me. Who crossed the line first? Him, making a deal with a monster to save one life while sacrificing others? Or her, carrying the truth that could destroy the only person who ever understood her pain? Because here's what nobody wants to admit. Sometimes the person who saves you is also the person who damns you. And sometimes the person you love most is holding the weapon that'll kill you. So what would you do? Would you expose the man who saved your life but let others die? Or would you bury the truth and become part of the same darkness that protected you? Comment below. Because what happens next, when she finally makes her choice, is gonna wreck you. And I need to know if you're ready for it. The fall didn't start with an explosion. It started with a whisper. Rebecca carried that flash drive for 2 months. 2 months of 2 a.m. phone calls where she listened to him talk her down from panic attacks, knowing what he'd done. 2 months of watching him show up outside her apartment to make sure she was safe, knowing the cost of that protection. 2 months of letting him hold her while she shook, knowing he was the reason she still shook at all. Guilt ate her alive from the inside. Not because she wanted to destroy him, but because she knew eventually she'd have no choice. The decision wasn't hers to make anymore. Her father made it for her. Judge Hartwell wasn't stupid. He knew his daughter had been acting strange. Knew she'd been spending time with someone she shouldn't. He'd seen the way she looked at her phone when it buzzed at odd hours. Seen her slip out late at night and come back looking like she'd been crying. So he did what any father would do. He investigated. And when he found out his daughter, his perfect, law-abiding, justice-believing daughter, was involved with the same man he'd been trying to put away for years, he didn't rage, didn't yell, didn't threaten. He just sat her down in his office, locked the door and said 6 words. "Show me what you're hiding." She tried to lie. Tried to pretend there was nothing. But her father had been reading people his entire career. He saw the guilt written all over her face. "Rebecca," he said, quieter now, "whatever it is, I can help you. But you have to trust me." And maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the weight of carrying a secret that felt like it was crushing her lungs. Maybe it was the little girl inside her who still wanted her daddy to fix everything. She pulled the flash drive from her pocket and set it on his desk. "This is why he saved me," she whispered. Judge Hartwell stared at that drive like it was a loaded gun. And in a way it was. He didn't say anything. Just plugged it into his computer and listened. Rebecca watched her father's face as the recording played. Watched the color drain from his cheeks. Watched his jaw tighten. Watched 20 years of unanswered questions finally click into place. When it ended, the silence in that office was suffocating. "He saved you," her father said slowly, not looking at her. "Yes. By making a deal with the man who took you. Yes. And that man continued operating. Continued taking children." Rebecca's throat closed up. "I know." Her father finally looked at her, and what she saw in his eyes wasn't anger. It was heartbreak. "Do you understand what this means?" he asked. "Dad. Do you understand," he repeated, voice shaking now, "that your life was bought with the lives of other children?" She couldn't answer. Because yes, she understood. She'd understood for 2 months. "There was a boy," her father continued, pulling up old case files on his computer. 8 years old. Found dead 3 weeks after your rescue. We never connected it because the cases were handled by different departments. But now," he turned the screen toward her. "Crime scene photos. A small body pulled from the river. A closed case that never got justice. That could have been you," her father said. "But it wasn't. Because he chose you." "I didn't ask him to." Rebecca's voice broke. "I was 6 years old. I didn't know." "But you know now." Her father stood up, and suddenly he wasn't her dad anymore. He was Judge Hartwell, the man who'd built his career on putting monsters away. And what you do with that knowledge defines who you are. "Dad, please? Does he know you have this?" She shook her head. "Good." He ejected the flash drive and pocketed it. "Then he won't see it coming." "What are you going to do?" Her father looked at her with something that might have been pity. "What I should have done 20 years ago. What the system should have done. I'm going to make sure he answers for every single choice he made. You'll destroy him." He destroyed himself the moment he made that deal. He saved me. He condemned others. Her father's composure finally cracked. "Rebecca, I know you feel like you owe him. I know you think there's something between you two that's real. But it's not love, it's Stockholm Syndrome with extra steps. He saved you from a monster by becoming one himself. That's not fair. Fair? Her father laughed, bitter and broken. You want to talk about fair? Those other kids didn't get to grow up. Didn't get to go to law school. Didn't get to fall in love with the man who traded their lives for yours. Where's their fair? Rebecca had no answer. Because he was right. 2 weeks later, the indictment came down. Not for racketeering. Not for extortion or money laundering or any of the charges they tried to make stick before. For conspiracy. For obstruction of justice. For making a deal with a known criminal that resulted in multiple deaths. The evidence? A 15-year-old recording. Timestamped, verified, undeniable. The prosecution's star witness? Rebecca Hartwell. She didn't want to testify. Begged her father not to make her. But he gave her the same choice he gave everyone. You can tell the truth, or you can be complicit in the lie. So she sat in that witness box under oath and told the truth. She told the courtroom about the flash drive. About the recording. About the deal her kidnapper made with a desperate soldier who thought he was saving a life. She told them about the deaf boy in the river. About the other victims who came after her. About the cost of her survival. And the whole time he sat at the defense table staring at her. Not with anger. Not with betrayal. Just understanding. Because he knew. He'd always known this was coming. The moment he made that deal 15 years ago, the moment he chose her life over the others, he signed his own death warrant. He just didn't know she'd be the one to pull the trigger. When she finished testifying, when the prosecutor said, "No further questions," she finally looked at him. And he smiled. Not a cruel smile. Not a mocking one. A sad, resigned smile that said, "I'd do it again." That's what broke her. Not the trial. Not the verdict that came 3 weeks later, guilty on all counts. Not the sentencing hearing where he got 25 to life. But that smile. Because it meant he didn't regret saving her. Even knowing it cost him everything. Even knowing she'd be the one to destroy him. He'd make the same choice. After the verdict, she tried to visit him. He refused. She wrote letters. He sent them back unopened. She showed up at the prison every week for 2 months. He never added her to his visitor list. The last thing he ever said to her was through his lawyer. Tell her she did the right thing. Tell her I'm sorry I put that weight on her. And tell her, she's free now. But she wasn't free. Because the panic attacks didn't stop. The nightmares didn't fade. The trauma didn't heal just because the man who saved her was behind bars. If anything, it got worse. Because now she carried a new weight. She saved herself by destroying the only person who ever understood her pain. The judge, her father, thought she'd find peace and justice. Thought putting him away would give her closure. But all it did was add another ghost to the collection. Now, when she woke up at 2 a.m. in a cold sweat, gasping for air, there was no one to call. No steady voice on the other end promising her she was safe. Just silence. And the knowledge that somewhere in a cell, the man who traded everything to save her life was paying for a choice she benefited from. The empire fell. His crew scattered. His name became a cautionary tale. But the real destruction? That happened in the quiet moments. When she walked past that parking garage where he found her having a panic attack. When she heard a voice that sounded like his. When she remembered the way he looked at her in that courtroom. Not with hate, but with love. Because that's what made it unforgivable. He loved her. And she destroyed him anyway. Not because she wanted to, but because the truth demanded it. And the worst part, the part that kept her up at night, was that he was right. She was free. Free from him. Free from the secret. Free from the impossible choice. But freedom, she learned, sometimes feels a lot like drowning. And the girl he saved 20 years ago? She died the day she testified against him. What survived was someone else entirely. Someone who understood, finally, that salvation always comes with a price. And sometimes, the person who saves you is also the person you have to bury. What nobody knows is that this wasn't the only broken promise that destroyed a powerful man. 3 years after his conviction, Rebecca was going through archived case files for her work at the DA's office. She'd moved on, or at least that's what she told herself. New apartment. New job. New therapist who didn't know the whole story. She was surviving. Barely. But surviving nonetheless. Then she found the folder. Unmarked, stuffed in the back of a filing cabinet in the cold case section. The kind of file that gets buried because nobody wants to deal with it. The kind that raises questions nobody wants answered. Inside was a police report from 18 years ago. A different city. A different man. But the same pattern. Miguel Santos. Cartel lieutenant. Ran operations from San Diego to Tijuana. untouchable for 15 years. Until he fell. Not because of DEA raids. Not because of rival gangs. Not because of federal investigations. He fell because of a girl. Her name was Sophia. 19 years old when she testified against him. The daughter of a federal prosecutor. The testimony that buried him? A recording. Miguel had made a deal 16 years prior with a human trafficking ring. He let them operate in his territory, let them move kids across the border, in exchange for them releasing one specific child. A girl with severe asthma who'd been taken from a shelter. The prosecutor's daughter. Sophia. He saved her life by condemning dozens of others. And when she found out years later, when she discovered the recording hidden in her father's safe, she had to make the same impossible choice. Protect the man who saved her. Or expose the truth. She chose truth. Miguel got life without parole. Died in prison 3 years into his sentence. Stabbed by someone whose kid disappeared in that trafficking pipeline he allowed to operate. Sophia tried to visit him before he died. He refused. Just like Rebecca's story. The same pattern. The same wound. Rebecca sat in that archive room, hands shaking, reading report after report. Because Miguel wasn't the only one. There was Marcus Webb. Chicago. 12 years ago. Ran the South Side with an iron fist. Former Marine turned enforcer turned kingpin. Fell because he made a deal with a dirty cop. Let the cop's ring of corrupt officers keep operating. In exchange for them rescuing a kidnapped infant from a rival crew. The baby belonged to an assistant U.S. attorney. Marcus saved that kid. 10 years later, the kid, now a teenager, found evidence of the deal. Turned it over to the FBI. Marcus got 30 years. Refused all visits from the boy he saved. And before Marcus, there was James Chin. 20 years ago. Triad enforcer who controlled the docks. Made a deal with a loan shark operation that was trafficking women. Let them run their business, in exchange for releasing one specific woman they'd enslaved. A social worker who'd been taken as a message to someone investigating the operation. James saved her. 15 years later she found out. Testified against him. He got life. Hanged himself in his cell 6 months in. Rebecca spread all the files across the floor of that archive room. For men. For different cities. For different timelines. All former military. All powerful criminals. All destroyed by the same pattern. They saved someone they shouldn't have been able to save, by making deals with monsters, and the person they saved eventually destroyed them with the truth. But here's what made Rebecca's blood run cold. The monsters they made deals with? They were all connected. Different faces. Different names. Different operations. But the same network. A pipeline that had been running for decades. Moving kids, moving people, moving misery through the cracks of the system. And these men, these soldiers turned criminals, they all tried to pull one person out. Made one deal. Saved one life. Then spent the rest of their existence building empires to bury the guilt. But the guilt always surfaced. Always. And when it did, it took everything. Rebecca found one more file. The oldest one in the collection. A case from 32 years ago. Before Miguel. Before James. Before Marcus. Before him. The file was barely complete. Most of it was redacted, classified, sealed. But what she could read made her stomach drop. A military operation gone wrong. Classified Black Ops team in Central America. Mission details unknown. Most of the team killed. 4 survivors. 4 names she recognized from the other files. They'd all served together. All been part of the same unit. All been in the same place when something went catastrophically wrong. And in the aftermath, in whatever hell they endured during that mission, they'd each made a promise. The details were redacted. But the summary was clear. Survivors reported symptoms consistent with severe PTSD and survivor's guilt. Each expressed determination to save the ones they couldn't save before. Recommended for psychological evaluation and discharge. All 4 were discharged. All 4 went dark. All 4 resurfaced years later as criminals. And all 4 at some point made a deal with the devil to save one innocent life. One life to balance the scales of whatever they'd failed to save during that mission. One life to redeem themselves. One life that eventually destroyed them. Rebecca sat in that archive room until the lights automatically shut off. Sat there in the dark, surrounded by the ghosts of men who'd tried to save people the way nobody saved them. Men who'd become monsters trying to protect innocence. Men who'd been buried by the very people they rescued. And she understood, finally, what her father never did. These men weren't evil. They were broken. Broken by war, by trauma, by guilt, by the weight of survival. They'd all tried to heal themselves by saving others, and in doing so created new victims. The cycle never ended. The guilt never faded. The wound never closed. She thought about him, the man sitting in a cell upstate refusing her letters, and wondered if he knew. Did he know about the others? Did he know he was part of a pattern? Did he know that somewhere there were more men like him making the same impossible choices? Or did he think he was alone in his damnation? Rebecca closed the files, put them back in the cabinet, locked it. She could expose this, could bring it to her father, to the DA, to the media, could blow open a conspiracy that spanned decades. But what would it change? The men were already in prison. Or dead. The people they'd saved had already testified. The damage was done. And exposing it wouldn't bring back the deaf boy in the river. Wouldn't save the kids lost in that trafficking pipeline. Wouldn't undo the deals or the deaths or the guilt. It would just add more names to the pile of people destroyed by impossible choices. So she walked out of that archive room, went home, poured herself a drink she didn't finish, and stared at her phone for 3 hours, debating whether to call the prison one more time. To tell him she understood now. To tell him he wasn't alone. To tell him the wound he carried had been passed down through an entire generation of broken soldiers who thought they could fix themselves by fixing others. But she didn't call. Because some conversations can't be had through prison phones. Some truths can't be spoken out loud. Some wounds can't be closed, only carried. Instead, she opened her laptop and started writing. Not a legal brief. Not a case file. Not a report. A story. His story. Miguel's story. Marcus's story. James's story. The story of men who tried to save one life and lost everything. The story of the people they saved who became their executioners. The story of guilt that eats you alive no matter which choice you make. She didn't know if anyone would ever read it. Didn't know if it mattered. But she wrote it anyway. Because someone had to remember. Someone had to say their names. Someone had to acknowledge that these men, these monsters, these saviors, these broken soldiers, they were human. And humanity, Rebecca had learned, is the most tragic thing of all. Because humans try to save each other. Try to fix what's broken. Try to balance the scales. And sometimes trying is what destroys you. 3 weeks after she finished writing, she got a letter. Not from him, he still refused contact. But from someone else. An inmate at a different prison. A name she didn't recognize. The letter was short. I heard about what happened to Santos, Webb, Chin, and your guy. I heard they all tried to save someone and paid for it. I'm writing because I need you to know, there's another one coming. Someone's about to make the same mistake. And when they do, someone like you is gonna have to decide what to do about it. No signature. No return address. No way to trace it. Just a warning. Rebecca held that letter for a long time. Then she folded it carefully and put it in her desk drawer. Next to the flash drive she'd never been able to throw away. Next to the unopened letters he'd sent back. Next to all the evidence of a choice that destroyed them both. And she waited. Because somewhere out there, another soldier was making another deal. Another innocent life was being saved at the cost of others. Another countdown was beginning. And when it ended, when that person's secret surfaced, someone would have to choose. Expose the truth and destroy the person who saved them. Or bury the truth and become complicit in the darkness. The wound would open again. The cycle would continue. And Rebecca would have to decide. If she'd learned anything at all. But that story is for another time. Another video. Another night when you can't sleep because you're wondering, what would you do? If the person who saved your life was also the person who condemned others to save you, would you pull the trigger? Or would you become part of the same darkness that kept you alive? Think about it. And I'll see you in the next one.